Everything you've been told about male sexuality is a lie, designed to keep you weak. They told you that sexual expression is healthy, that repression is dangerous, that you should embrace your desires. But what if the opposite is true? What if the men who control their sexual energy are the ones who actually control the world? As you're watching this, something is controlling you. And it's not what you think it is. You believe you're in control. Wrong. There's an invisible puppeteer pulling your strings, and it's been doing so for years without you even noticing. It's not some conspiracy. It's something far more intimate, far more dangerous. It's your own sexualized mind. And it's the reason you feel stuck, distracted, and spiritually empty. Yes, you heard that right. Sex hypnotizes your mind. Not just the act itself, but the endless stream of sexualized imagery, suggestions, and stimuli that flood your consciousness every single day. Carl Jung warned us about this nearly a century ago, how our deepest energies could be hijacked, redirected, and weaponized against our own growth. If you've ever wondered why you can't focus, why your goals feel impossible, why you're constantly seeking the next distraction, this is your answer. Your mind has been colonized by forces that profit from your confusion. And today, I will teach you how to transform these forces into your meaningful goals and how to become a man with clarity. Your relationships are shallow because you've been conditioned to see people as objects. Your work suffers because you can't focus for more than 10 minutes without craving stimulation. Your confidence is shattered because you're constantly comparing reality to fantasy. Your energy is drained because you're giving your life force away to pixels on a screen. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every successful civilization in history was built by men who channeled their sexual energy into creation, not consumption. The Romans, the Greeks, the builders of the Renaissance, they understood that sexual discipline equals worldly power. But modern society has convinced you that sexual restraint is unhealthy, that you need to express yourself, that holding back your desires will make you sick. It's the greatest psychological operation ever conducted, and you fell for it. The real controversy? The men promoting sexual freedom are the same ones profiting from your sexual slavery. They want you distracted, depleted, and dependent because focused men are dangerous to their control. The invisible prison. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer with brutal honesty. When was the last time you went an entire day without being sexually stimulated by something you didn't consciously choose to consume? An advertisement, a thumbnail, a suggested post, a random image that just happened to appear in your feed. You can't remember, can you? Because it's everywhere. And that's not an accident. Your mind, this incredible instrument capable of creating art, solving problems, and connecting with the divine, has been turned into a reception antenna for other people's sexual programming. You think you're browsing the internet, but the internet is browsing you, studying your patterns, learning your triggers, feeding you just enough stimulation to keep you clicking, scrolling, consuming. And every time you take the bait, something dies inside you. Your focus fractures, your presence dissolves, your masculine essence, that deep, creative force that's meant to build kingdoms and change the world, gets drained away drop by drop. Jung called this the shadow, the part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. But your shadow isn't just personal anymore. It's been commercialized, algorithmized, and turned into a profit center. But here's what's about to change. Everything you think you know about yourself. The neuroscience of enslavement. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real woman and a pixelated image on a screen. It doesn't distinguish between genuine intimacy and artificial stimulation. To your ancient limbic system, a dopamine hit is a dopamine hit, and that's exactly what they're counting on. Every sexualized image you consume triggers the same neurochemical cascade that your ancestors experienced when finding a mate. Your brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, and a cocktail of other chemicals designed to make you pursue, acquire, and possess. But here's the trap. You never actually acquire anything. You just get the chemical promise of acquisition over and over and over again. It's like being hungry and eating pictures of food. Your body responds as if it's being nourished, but you're actually starving. This creates what neuroscientists call a dopamine deficit state. Your baseline level of satisfaction drops. Normal life, real relationships, meaningful work, genuine achievement starts to feel gray and lifeless. You need stronger and stronger stimulation just to feel normal. This isn't weakness. This isn't a moral failing. This is biological warfare against your consciousness. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly satisfied by something simple? A sunset, a conversation, a moment of silence. If these things feel boring to you, it's because your dopamine receptors have been hijacked by artificial superstimuli. You've been neurochemically colonized. But Jung discovered something that modern neuroscience is only now beginning to understand. What can be programmed can be reprogrammed. Your brain's plasticity, its ability to rewire itself, is the key to your liberation. And that process begins with understanding exactly how deep this programming goes. The architecture of manipulation. In 1928, Edward Bernays, Freud's nephew, wrote a book called Propaganda. In it, he revealed something that would reshape civilization. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Translation: your desires aren't your own. They've been engineered. Bernays understood what Jung was discovering in his clinical work, that beneath our rational mind lies a roiling ocean of primitive drives, fears, and desires. And the most powerful of these is sexual desire. So they stopped selling products and started selling sexual fantasies. That car isn't just transportation. It's a phallic symbol that makes you irresistible. That perfume isn't fragrance. It's liquid seduction. That social media platform isn't communication. It's an endless buffet of sexual validation. But here's where it gets truly sinister. They discovered they didn't even need to deliver on the sexual promise. They just needed to keep you in a state of perpetual arousal, perpetual seeking, perpetual dissatisfaction. You know that feeling when you open Instagram or TikTok just for a few minutes and suddenly an hour has passed. That's not a lack of willpower. That's sophisticated psychological engineering designed to keep you in what addiction specialists call a seeking loop. Your brain's reward system is being hacked by the same behavioral modification techniques used to train lab rats. Except you're the rat, and the entire digital ecosystem is the laboratory. Every like, every swipe, every notification is carefully calibrated to deliver just enough reward to keep you seeking the next hit, but never enough to actually satisfy you. Jung warned that when we become unconscious of our own psychological processes, we become possessed by them. And right now, Millions of men are possessed by artificially amplified sexual programming that has nothing to do with their authentic desires or their authentic purpose. But here's what they don't want you to realize. The same energy they're stealing from you can be reclaimed and redirected toward your actual goals. The masculine shadow. Jung spent decades studying what he called the collective unconscious, the shared psychological patterns that influence all human behavior. And he discovered something that explains why you feel so lost, so anxious, so disconnected from your own power. Modern man has been cut off from his archetypal masculine energy. Throughout history, masculine energy has been channeled through ritual, through initiation, through meaningful struggle. Young men were guided by elders through challenges that tested their character and forged their identity. They had rites of passage that transformed boys into men. Today, that transformative energy has nowhere to go, so it gets trapped, twisted, and misdirected into increasingly destructive patterns. Without genuine challenges, men seek artificial ones. Without real intimacy, they pursue digital substitutes. Without true purpose, they chase empty pleasures. This is what Jung called inflation. When psychic energy that should be used for growth and creation gets diverted into fantasy and escape. And the sexual imagery that saturates our culture isn't just stealing your attention. It's hijacking the very energy you need to become who you're meant to be. Every time you consume sexualized content that doesn't lead to genuine intimacy or creation, you're essentially masturbating your potential away. You're using up the psychic energy that should be driving you toward mastery, toward service, toward love. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But you can't become who you truly are while you're addicted to being someone else's consumer. Your authentic masculine essence, what Jung called the inner king, doesn't seek to be constantly stimulated. It seeks to create, to protect, to provide, to build something meaningful. But that king has been dethroned by an imposter. The endlessly needy, perpetually distracted, constantly aroused false self that the system has conditioned you to believe is who you really are. The good news? The real king is still there, waiting to be reclaimed. The alchemical transformation. Jung was fascinated by alchemy, not because he believed you could turn lead into gold, but because he recognized that the alchemical process was actually a metaphor for psychological transformation. The alchemists spoke of the prima materia, the raw, unrefined substance that contains the potential for transformation. In your life, your sexual energy is your prima materia. It's the most powerful creative force you possess. But like the alchemist's lead, this raw energy must be purified, refined, and consciously directed before it can become gold. The process isn't comfortable. The alchemists called the first stage nigredo, the blackening. It's the phase where everything you thought you knew about yourself breaks down, where your old patterns stop working, where you face the shadow you've been avoiding. If you've ever tried to quit pornography or social media or any other digital addiction, you know this phase intimately. The anxiety, the boredom, the feeling that life has lost its color. This is normal. This is necessary. This is your consciousness detoxing from artificial stimulation. But most people don't make it through the nigredo phase because they don't understand what's happening. They think something is wrong with them. They think they're broken. So they go back to their old patterns of escape. What they don't realize is that this discomfort, is actually the birth pangs of their authentic self. Jung called the next phase albedo, the whitening. This is where clarity begins to emerge, where you start to see how much of your behavior was driven by unconscious programming, where you begin to reclaim your power of choice. You start to notice things you never noticed before, how manipulative certain images are, how empty certain pleasures feel, how much energy you have when you're not constantly depleting yourself. And finally comes rubedo, the reddening. This is where your purified sexual energy becomes creative energy, where the force that was once scattered in 1,000 directions becomes focused like a laser beam on what actually matters to you. This is when men start businesses, create art, build families, change the world, because they're no longer giving their life force away to strangers on the internet. They're investing it in their own becoming. But this transformation doesn't happen automatically. It requires what Jung called conscious suffering, the willingness to endure discomfort in service of growth. The daily practice. Jung believed that transformation happens through what he called active imagination, the practice of consciously engaging with the contents of your unconscious mind, instead of being unconsciously driven by them. In practical terms, this means developing the ability to observe your desires without immediately acting on them, to create space between stimulus and response, to choose your actions instead of being chosen by your impulses. This is what meditation actually is. Not emptying your mind, but becoming aware of what's in it. And when you become aware of your unconscious patterns, they lose their power over you. Start with 5 minutes every morning. Sit quietly and simply observe what arises in your consciousness. Don't judge it. Don't fight it. Just watch. You'll be amazed at how much sexual imagery, how many random thoughts, how much digital noise is constantly running in the background of your mind. Most men are completely unaware of this internal chaos because they never stop moving long enough to notice it. But awareness is the beginning of freedom. Jung also emphasized the importance of what he called shadow work, consciously acknowledging the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. Your anger, your neediness, your fear, your sexual compulsions. The paradox is that what you resist persists, but what you acknowledge can be transformed. Keep a journal. Write down when you feel the urge to seek digital stimulation. What triggered it? What were you avoiding? What do you really need in that moment? Usually it's not actually sexual satisfaction you're seeking. It's comfort, connection, or relief from some uncomfortable emotion. Once you understand what you're really looking for, you can find healthier ways to meet that need. This is the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is unconscious, response is conscious, and consciousness is the foundation of masculine power. But the most important practice of all is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are, instead of who others expect you to be. Reclaiming your kingdom. Jung wrote, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." The reason you feel so empty after consuming digital stimulation is because you're feeding someone else's vision of who you should be instead of discovering your own. Every sexualized image you consume was created by someone else to serve their agenda. Every algorithm is designed to keep you consuming instead of creating. Every notification is a bid for your attention, the most valuable resource you possess. But what if you reclaimed that attention? What if you stopped being a consumer and started being a creator? This is what Jung meant by individuation, the process of becoming an individual instead of just another member of the mass. It's the journey from being unconsciously driven by external forces to being consciously directed by your own inner authority. Your inner authority doesn't speak in the language of compulsion. It doesn't scream for immediate gratification. It whispers in the silence between thoughts. It emerges in moments of stillness, creativity, and genuine connection. But you can't hear it while you're constantly stimulated. Jung discovered that every person has what he called a personal myth, a unique story that gives their life meaning and direction. But most people never discover their personal myth because they're too busy living other people's stories. Your personal myth isn't something you invent. It's something you uncover. It's revealed through the things that genuinely fascinate you, the problems you can't stop thinking about, the injustices that make you angry, the visions that make you come alive. But it can only emerge when you create space for it, when you stop filling every moment with external stimulation and start listening to your inner voice. This is why desexualizing your mind isn't about repression. It's about redirection. It's about taking the energy you've been giving away and investing it in your own becoming. When you do this, something magical happens. The same force that was once scattered becomes concentrated. The same energy that was once depleted becomes abundant. The same desire that was once compulsive becomes creative. You don't lose your passion. You find its true purpose. The initiation. In traditional cultures, the transition from boyhood to manhood was marked by an initiation, a ritualized death of the old self and birth of the new. The boy would be taken away from the familiar, challenged beyond his comfort zone, and forced to confront his deepest fears. Only after proving he could master himself would he be welcomed back as a man. Modern culture offers no such initiation, which is why so many men remain boys their entire lives, reactive, impulsive, driven by appetites they don't understand. But you can initiate yourself. The process begins with a simple recognition. The boy seeks to be pleased. The man seeks to be useful. The boy wants immediate gratification. The man accepts delayed gratification in service of a greater goal. The boy is controlled by his desires. The man consciously directs his desires. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily choice, made moment by moment, to choose consciousness over compulsion. Every time you feel the urge to seek digital stimulation and choose instead to sit with the discomfort, you're initiating yourself. Every time you redirect sexual energy toward creative work, you're proving your mastery. Every time you choose presence over pleasure, you're claiming your throne. Jung understood that the ultimate goal of human development isn't happiness, it's wholeness. And wholeness comes from integrating all aspects of yourself, including your sexuality, under the conscious direction of your highest self. This is what he called the transcendent function, the ability to hold the tension between opposing forces until a new level of consciousness emerges. Your sexual energy and your spiritual aspirations aren't enemies. They're both expressions of your life force. But one serves your ego, while the other serves your soul. The initiated man knows the difference, and he chooses accordingly. The final call. Right now you have a choice. You can close this video and go back to unconscious consumption, letting your attention be harvested by forces that don't have your best interests at heart. Or you can begin the process of reclaiming your sovereignty. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." The reason this message irritates the part of you that wants to keep escaping is because it's true, and truth demands a response. If you're ready to stop being a victim of your own unconscious programming, start today. Delete the apps that feed your compulsions. Unfollow the accounts that stimulate without nourishing. Create physical and digital boundaries around your attention. Replace empty consumption with conscious creation. Instead of scrolling, write. Instead of watching, build. Instead of escaping, engage. Your future self is waiting for you to make this choice. He's the version of you that's focused, creative, and internally powerful. He's the man you could become if you stopped giving your life force away to strangers. But he can only emerge if you're willing to sacrifice who you've been for who you could become. This isn't just personal development. This is spiritual warfare, the battle for your consciousness, the fight for your soul. And it starts with the radical act of paying attention, not to the endless stream of stimulation that surrounds you, but to the still, small voice within you that knows exactly who you're meant to be. Subscribe if this message resonated with you. Share it with men who need to hear it. Because we're not just building better men. We're reclaiming masculine consciousness from the forces that seek to commodify and control it. The revolution begins in your mind. And your mind is the only battlefield that truly matters. Your kingdom awaits. Will you claim it?